Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom,
Well, well, well. Fancy meeting you here on this Moomamo.
These are the consequences of my own actions.
That's right. Speaking of non-combat obstacles, it's your favorite show, Mutants and Masterminds Monday. I'm looking in the chat and I'm seeing Nate. You are, I don't know what you're talking about. Consulted with the crew and none of us do. So feel free to, I don't know what.
I do understand the Emerald City Dam exploding.
Sure.
Oh.
But I don't know why John Wayne is involved.
Hey, Apook says, happy Moomamo super fam. Unto you as well, my friend. Sean Holland, I got to tell you, Sean Holland says sorry that they missed last week. And I got to say, I was inconsolable.
Well, we were at less than full Sean's.
Yeah, so we need a full capacity of Sean's if we want to, have any business having a Moomamo. Right. But I'm glad you're here. So we'll you can make up for it now. A good day to you, David Bolak. Waiting for all of our friends to line up. Can everyone hear us all right? Can you hear me okay? I have a short in my headphones. And so, yeah, it just kind of comes in and out. It's a little unnerving.
I recently replaced my headphone ear pads. I'm very happy about it.
Well, you know what?
Your ears must be.
Yeah, your ears must be. But all of the people watching the program now, their eyes will be... Look at that.
Whoa.
Will be soothed by the appearance of one Alex Thomas and one Steve Kenson and about a half of a Disembodied Troy. And we three hosts, 2.5, right. Math is not my strong suit. We come to you every single Monday. We talk about superheroes. We talk about only the best superhero game. Actually the only superhero game that was ever created.
I'm not going to lie.
Artisanal and most locally sourced superheroes.
That's exactly right.
Handcrafted.
Farm to table.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Farm to stunt table.
I've been really surprised in this reboot of 2.5 Men that I'm not the half guy.
Right?
Oh, really? You thought, yeah.
I thought for sure I'd be the half guy.
I never really thought of it, but it seems appropriate at this very moment. It's been absolutely bananas. We're on the cusp of the event horizon that happens in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm. Gravity is rapidly drawing things in.
I feel it. The black hole is. I'm going to tell you, just you. I don't want anyone else to know, but I haven't packed yet, and I fly out tonight.
That's not how live broadcasting works, Troy.
Yeah. Oh, right. Whoops. Oh, I forgot that part. Hey, look at that. Pope's here. Rebel Moose says in the D&D 3.5e campaign I was in, my DM had us attend a fancy dinner. Hardest encounter we had in the whole 2-year campaign. Fun.
Right.
I like that a lot. But yeah, Pope says, howdy lads, no RC today, so you're stuck with me. Oh, yeah. Well, RC is usually the mitigating sort of, I think, he sort of acts as a blast shield. Mm-hmm. But without him, I say...
An anti-pope, as it were.
Yes. a pope dampening
my
situation.
Mask. I'll go get it.
Hey, I don't want to alarm you, gentlemen, but Squire's in the chat. And... Skwire is the one that came up with this topic.
Yes.
And at our planning meeting, provided the inspiration. And so, friend, you get a hero point, and it looks something like this. Someday we should make these. But it's a real life hero point. So basically, you get to quickly recover from anything. You get to turn a failure to a success. Present the perfect counter argument. Just day and date, just right in their face. Edit a real life situation, amplify a talent, and who knows what else?
All sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, really, who knows? Anybody? Yeah, it's both very dangerous and highly sought after. So congratulations to you, Skwire. We really appreciate it. And it's a topic I think people really are going to enjoy. I was
Hopefully
talking to Alex.
Can, do you proud on this one?
Yeah, exactly. I was talking to Alex before we started, and this is one of the topics that I am near expert level mastery of creating non-combat obstacles for myself, just in general. It's really great.
Yes.
Oh, don't waste it on a headache, Skwire. Skwire says that they're going to spend their hero point to edit my headache.
You can remove the headache condition. That's
Yeah, it's a perfectly valid use of get rid of my fatigue.
Modify it into a hat.
Mm.
But yeah, so Jonathan Jackson says, "Hey everyone, happy Mumamo, you as well." We'd certainly enjoy everybody hanging out. And if you're popping in for the first time, or just where are you from? Just drop it in chat. Tell us where you're living, and and give us the first 4 of your social or 3 of your social, and then what house did you grow up in, and the name of your first cat. We just like to get to know you. So, gentlemen, I'm going to stop rambling and say, what are we talking about? What is this?
So today we are talking all about creating challenge scenes, which are they cover a wide variety of topics. Things can be from death traps to natural disasters, heists, everything in between. Sort of any chance that a character can use their skills and power to overcome an obstacle that isn't necessarily trying to punch them in the face is how I tend to describe this.
Gotcha. Oh, hey, ruling. There's a question on the floor. Ronald Pat says, doesn't that require leadership? Otherwise, he can only counter his own headache.
No, not for that real hero point.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, rules change when it's real.
Real hero points are slightly more powerful than in-game hero points.
Yeah, that makes sense. Warden Maximus, hello to you. So people are very excited about this. Apook says, "Oh, I love me some skill challenges, challenge scenes," I think is what you meant. But yes, okay, yes, and Pope is fighting a raccoon, I guess. Yeah, that is a combat obstacle, right?
Watch out for the pointy part. That's my advice.
Right.
Wiser
and
words.
Their little hands are problematic too.
I love it. Speaking of problematic hands, Jonathan Jackson says, "I live in the sewer with my 4 adopted turtles." Nice.
Those turtles do have problematic hands.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I'm brave enough to say that when Crystal wasn't around.
Claude is saving his real life hero point for use in a convention game someday. Ooh. You got a video.
That means it's going to happen to me. Claude's bringing that to me somewhere.
I think he's saving it for you. I really do. Beware. Yeah, raccoon hands are problematic. Thank you, Claude. But yeah, so how do you go about creating a non-combat obstacle for your hero? Like, what's the recipe?
So I think for a good challenge scene, all you need to know is what the players want and what keeps them from getting it. And that's where you start when you're building a challenge sequence. That's sort of the baseline pieces of it.
Okay.
Right. I mean, basically the 2 key kinds of challenges, either the heroes are trying to prevent something from happening, or they are trying to achieve a goal that they are being blocked from achieving.
I like it. When we do like to put sort of people through a arduous test of their skills and things, I do love that we kind of look at it like, what do they want and how can we keep them from it?
Exactly.
I love it.
You sort of describe the situation, your players tell you how they respond, and then I like to leave a lot of room for generalization for what skill checks or power checks are involved in that. That's a great space for imagination and improv.
It is.
Okay, I love that. Now, when you're looking at, sometimes people get lost in the sauce. They're thinking of all the mechanics and the things and, all the rules. And that's important, because you want to have some structure. How do you structure this then? What is that leeway and how far is too far? And, when do you drop the hammer?
Well, I think that there's definitely a lot of gray area, and players are definitely going to try and play to their character's strengths. So far as that goes, I think it really lies in whether or not you can come up with a good story-related reason for that particular strength or skill or power to come into play in that particular challenge. And sometimes players come up with good, solid reasons for that. And sometimes they don't. And, you have to be willing to be like, no, try harder.
Right.
Try something else.
So a question for both of you. I mean, as gentlemen who have run many an adventure in in the Mutants and Masterminds verse, how do you recommend other GMs prepare their players for these moments? What are some? I mean, is there even a call to sort of help build capacity in players so that they can engage with this in a
I think the best way to start is when you introduce the skill challenge to introduce the idea of sort of out of game a little bit. These are the things that need to be accomplished in order to succeed at the skill challenge and sort of the order they go in. I'm going to have each of you roll one check and let me know what you think your character would be good at in this and deliberate about it, and then make the rolls and then dive into the narration of it. Those phases sort of help with me.
I agree with Alex. I think that when you get started with challenges, it's a good idea to run really simple, very clearly structured ones to start, and say, and introduce them to the players. Just break them down and say, okay, this is how this mechanically works. These are the skills that are going to be involved in success. We're going to roll the checks and add up the degrees of success or failure and see how it goes. Once the players have gotten the hang of that concept, start playing around with the option of more variability or the option of substituting different abilities and say, so the main ability here is going to be persuasion, but if you have another approach to this, tell me what you think, and we'll talk about maybe substituting something else for that.
And I think that escalation is good for GMs too. Like, start off for yourself, having the DC sort of be a set DC for each phase of it. And then maybe as you get comfortable with it, coming up with, okay, if they persuade, it's a lower DC because this person's more susceptible to persuasion. If they intimidate, this person's less likely to be intimidated by them, so it's a higher DC to succeed. Yep. And messing around with things like that.
And that's a really good, useful tool in terms of doing options in challenges, is adjusting the difficulty, but making that clear sometimes to the players of saying, okay, yeah, you can try intimidation, but that's going to be a little harder. Is that still how you want to go with that?
And one second, Steve. I'm sorry, David. Yeah. I tuned up Steve. I turned him up a little bit. Let me know, because I hear him absolutely fine, and so it's difficult to judge. But of course, you are the ones that need to hear him. So let me know, let us know, and we'll bump him up again. But
I'm probably too loud. It's probably my fault.
my soft-spoken nature. I will also attempt to speak up and speak more clearly.
So a question for you two. When you look at when challenges were introduced to Mutants and Masterminds, or when that became, did Mutants and Masterminds start with challenges, or when did that come about, and in what way?
Challenges got introduced basically in the 3rd edition of the game. We had some similar versions of that as optional rules in 2nd edition, but the notion of challenges as a core game system mechanic happened in the 3rd edition DC Adventures. And as Apuk pointed out, largely inspired by the way that skill challenges worked in 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
4th edition gets a lot of hate, but there are a lot of really clever game mechanics in there.
There are.
Apuk says skill challenges are so flexible and adaptable. They can structure literally any kind of challenge or conflict that doesn't directly involve fighting. Everything from a tense negotiation to an investigation to a high-speed chase, a race, anything really. What books are we recommending? What's our recommended reading for folks to kind of wrap their mind around this concept?
A lot of the Astonishing Adventures are good to get examples of skill challenges, especially A Cold Day in Midtown begins with a pretty involved skill challenge that has individual vignettes built into the skill challenge as well. Danger Zones has a skill challenge for a mayoral race in the City Hall part of it, which is that blew my mind that you could do like a months-long skill challenge in the game.
That's awesome.
Well, That's another great point in terms of the variables for skill challenges. Is one of them is the time interval involved, and skill challenges. And technically, I need to stop saying skill challenges because they don't just involve skills. They could be any trait as far as that goes. It could also be powers or abilities or any of that sort of stuff. But the one of the elements is definitely the time interval involved in the challenge. It can be anywhere from every round in action time to as Alex says, it could be weeks between challenges as far as that goes, and you could be playing out something that happens over a really long period of time.
Yeah, in Pook's adventure, Terror from the Skies, there is a skill challenge or challenge sequence that takes place concurrently with a fight. So some of the players have to work on the challenge, and some of the players have to keep the combat going. So the rounds, each round is a check for the skill challenge.
Yep, and that's a nice way that you can integrate challenges into conflict scenes. Is by keeping them on the same scale. Then you have some characters involved in the conflict and some characters who are focused on the challenge.
So we said a Cold Day in Midtown, and what was the second one?
Terror from the Skies is
was
really good
yes.
one with skill challenges.
Yeah.
One of my I'm very, very fond of that because that was created by one of our friends, Apook, and I played it. Was one of my first Mutants and Masterminds games.
Yeah, there's several really good challenges in it. There's the end one where they're trying to save the ship that's blowing up, and then there's the negotiation with the Atlanteans who show up at the museum. Is handled as a challenge sequence. There's a lot of cool variations of what a challenge sequence can be.
Yep.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm in the midst of typing. I'm going to put up a QR code so that folks can grab that, and then we'll also put up one for a Pook's adventure as well. Are there... Go ahead, sorry.
I did see that Skwire said the hardest problem they have is getting my players to think about how to use what they have. Sometimes they're afraid of using the wrong thing, and that is definitely... That's a hard mindset to break in players coming from other role-playing games into Mutants and Masterminds.
Yep.
You just have to be patient with them and encourage and reward improv and show them maybe a little bit on your end how you are doing things with your villains that may be a fun power stunt or all sorts of different ways to encourage creativity with their abilities.
Yeah. I encourage my players to pitch ideas before we actually start rolling checks. And for them to basically say, like, I think that my expertise skill would apply here because of this, and for me to either agree or disagree that would be potentially effective, and at what modification to the difficulty and the like before we even start rolling. I don't ask players to just use abilities blind. To say, oh, I'm just going to try my expertise in pop culture here, and then I'm going to be like, no, it doesn't work, so you fail. Because that just seems mean. So I definitely try and we do a little story building before we start rolling the checks and seeing how it works out.
Yeah, and make sure your players know that you're not the kind of GM who is the GM who's like, I'm thinking of a number, and if you get it wrong, I'm going to punish you.
Right.
That's my least favorite kind of GM.
I think that is because it always comes with so much other baggage.
Right. Yeah, I tend to disagree. I tend to agree with that. I'm not a fan of that style.
Some people are. It's just not for me.
Ramapat, in terms of challenges and quickness, generally the two don't mix very much because quickness is primarily for routine tasks that aren't checks or only things that can be handled as routine checks. So I generally don't have quickness play much of a role in challenges, except when it applies to something that is kind of a routine check. So if, for example, a challenge involves how quickly can you search an area, and a character who has quickness wants to do a routine check for that, then that may apply to potentially speeding something up for the challenge. But it may also be that the routine check is too difficult and it's not something they can do that fast.
Mm-hmm. How does that interact with skill mastery, Steve, where you can use a routine check for anything?
Similar idea. If a character wants to fall back on their skill mastery for a challenge, I generally give players a good idea whether or not that's going to be a success or not. That the character can kind of assess the difficulty, and because of their mastery of that skill, they can know whether this is something that they can just succeed at or not. And because oftentimes challenges involve degrees of success, falling back at skill mastery can be good in terms of it guarantees success, but it only is a minimum level of it. So sometimes it's a matter of, do you want that minimum level of success and you're just going to keep at it? Or do you really want to risk and have the better chance of a greater degree of success, but also risking failure in the process?
Yeah, I think that ties in a little bit with Temporary's question with how do non-combat challenges differ from situations with environmental hazards and the powers available.
Mm-hmm.
I like to incorporate environmental hazards for skill challenges as consequences for failure on checks. So the players have to roll a resistance against damage effect because there's sparking power lines or something like that.
Yeah,
because they failed the skill check.
Yeah, and that's one effective way of placing a limit on a challenge. Usually, the standard limit on a challenge is either degrees of failure. If you accumulate too many, you failed, or it's time. You only have this many chances to make the check in order to succeed, or again, the challenge fails. But incorporating something like resistance checks against damage or other kinds of effects can also be a way of limiting a challenge of your only chances to get this challenge done are until you've passed out from damage, or you've held your breath as long as you possibly can, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so one thing I borrow from the age system is minor failures, moderate failures, and major failures for challenge sequences, where the first couple times you fail, it's not really a horrible failure, but it is a consequence, and the consequences get worse as you subsequently keep failing to achieve what you're looking to achieve.
Right.
And I do the same thing for successes, where if you achieve a baseline degree of success, you have succeeded the challenge, but if you get more, there's a benefit you'll get, and even more, there's a bigger benefit you'll receive in either the next scene or information or something like that.
Hey, real quick, I wanted to remind everybody, we have we worked really hard on it, but we invented something. We're calling it a QR code. And basically what we've done is we put it up on the screen, and if you use your phone, you take a picture of that little squiggly bit there, that's the QR code. That will take you, as if by magic, to the store, and you can pick up your copy of either, they're both astonishing. Are they both Astonishing Adventures? I believe they are. Yes.
They are both Astonishing Adventures.
Terror from the Skies, and then A Cold Day in Midtown.
Cold Day in Midtown.
Yeah. And, when the three of us were working in our lab on the QR code, I wanted to call it a Troy code, but that didn't work. So it's QR. And do avail yourself of the technology. And every time you use it, we get $100 to split amongst the three of us. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah,
right.
It's great.
I need $100. I'm going to check.
Oh, hey, Ken, I see you there. Ken says, happy Mammo, been moving apartments all day. Oh, yikes. Yikers. Okay, who else did I miss here? Angel says, how would you deal? Did you already answer this question? You didn't, did you?
Not yet.
Okay, good. How would you deal with player characters during a nuclear meltdown at a nuclear power plant with all the radiation?
In addition to their challenge sequence roll, they would have to roll a resistance versus the radiation environment as laid out in the Deluxe Heroes Handbook, unless they've got immunity to radiation.
Yeah,
that would be a second roll in addition to their challenge sequence roll.
That's a great example of the kind of environmental hazard that Alex is talking about, combined with a challenge.
Nice.
Yeah, if they fail, maybe they'd suffer like an actual damage effect from the reactor melting down, in addition to the general, I've got to make a fortitude check when I'm in a radiated zone.
Right.
Reading some of our Chad is just always funny, always cracking me up. So when you let's see, QR is the yes QR. I get out. I really wanted to pronounce that right. Is the new
Mhm.
green Ronin mascot a tiny digital alien? Yeah, yeah. So what are some of the most innovative ways that you've used or seen challenges used in a encounter? Oh no. Steve, something opened your door.
Mhm.
It
It's
was a ghost.
the air moving.
Oh, yes,
Mm.
certainly. Uh, Nate says free falling from an exploding airship.
That's a good
Pretty
one.
cool.
Sure. Yeah. How'd you run that?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. If your goal is to, free fall to a target or to reach something else, if it's to, be able to activate a parachute or something else that's going to arrest your fall,
Mhm.
it depends a lot on the conditions. If there's debris around you, um, you know, kind of a whole bunch of other things so
Yeah,
far as
I'm
that
picturing
goes.
rescuing bystanders from the falling debris
Right.
and like jumping from section to section, trying to find people to make sure that they can all do the fun human barrel of monkeys thing from Iron Man 3.
Right.
Spoiler, I haven't seen that.
It's been 10 years.
Right. Spoilers don't apply
I
anymore.
suppose at some point you got to give up the ghost. Unless you're Steve, then you just move in with them.
Right.
I'm trying to I'm wrapping my mind around creating a challenge, and it is I just have too many ideas. What when someone's you were talking about how a Pook's adventure had a few different challenges. You in
Mhm.
the Cold Day in Midtown, there's an opener. How many challenges do you want to include in a thing?
It depends on the nature of the adventure you're running, but
Okay.
I
Mhm.
always encourage people to do a big variety of scenes so nothing gets stale in your adventure.
Right.
Um, depends on your time constraints as well. If you're running a one shot, I find that challenge sequences are a great way to bridge combat scenes
Mhm.
Okay.
because
Oh, nice.
you only got a few hours to get through the whole story. So it's a great way to montage through something like an investigation
Mhm.
or a
Right.
break in, or it's a great way to build a lot of narrative into a little bit of space.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Janana says challenges seems to me to be an excellent form for scenarios with low power.
They
Hmm.
can be, yeah. And like Alex points out, challenges are great for shorthanding a lot of things
Mm.
that would otherwise take a lot of time or take a lot of explanation. So far as that goes, they're great for handling things where the characters are basically just better prepared than the players
Right,
are,
right.
in terms of their investigative abilities or their contacts or their skills in social interaction. If you want to, have a grand debate over something or something that is like a legal case that's played
Hmm.
out, you can do that as a challenge scene without having to play out every moment of
Every
it.
right,
Mhm.
right. I like that. Well, oh, I've got a great idea. How about this? Because I think this sounds like a good non-combat obstacle. Let's say you're trying to defuse a bomb while being invisible and keeping the terrorists from noticing that someone is defusing their bomb.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
that's a great challenge scene, and
I'm
it's
so
it's
smart.
interesting because it has multiple facets to it.
Mm,
So there are different things you're trying to accomplish, and so your ability to defuse the bomb is also important as well as your ability to remain hidden.
mm.
And so you've got a little sort of give and take there. It's not all focused on one skill.
Well, I'm
Yep.
glad
And
you
there
like
are
it.
multiple avenues for players to get engaged in. So some players can be working with the guards, trying to distract them or trying to lead like lead them on a wild goose chase, and then some of the players can be working on the bombs. So there are phases of it as well.
I love
Mhm.
a goose chase, which is why I kind of thought of the idea all by myself, and so I'm going to award myself a hero point.
Good.
Good.
All right, thanks.
It's not how hero points work.
Isn't no? Okay. I thought it was the point, that I
You have
get for
to
being.
you have to report to your game master to get one of those.
All right. It wasn't my idea. It was SC Terran Marines. I'm just giving him the business. Let's see. Nate says I had a player in a world try to get out. Okay, in a Toon world, I'm presuming they had to interact with people trying to do things in real life. Okay, that's clever. Ranma says even if your character's Sherlock Holmes, don't expect your player to be Sherlock Holmes. Right.
Right.
That's fair. That is very fair.
Right.
Let's see. Ken Pham says stolen valor. Temp says, how about superheroes whose specialties are rescuing people during environmental crises like earthquakes, tornadoes, and tsunamis?
Yeah. We, in fact, played a whole Mutants and Masterminds game based around that idea.
We sure did. We
There
were
was a
those
lot of
people.
challenge sequences in that.
It's a great idea, Temp. A great idea.
I got to go down the hole.
You did. You did. You did. You were with some concern, some trepidation.
Despite your reluctance.
That's right.
I played a mountain character. I don't want to go down the hole.
Claude says, I've had a skill challenge running in the background of combat scenes before, some fighting monsters while others try to finish a ritual.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I've seen that in play.
The end of Menace on Mystery Mountain has that exact
Yes,
scene
right.
in it. You get to fight a monster from beyond while some other characters are working on the challenge sequence to try and banish it.
I love that. Simon says, don't forget to add +5 to the DC if you want to conceal the tampering.
It's true.
Wise. Jonah, challenge idea. The characters are trapped in a mystical labyrinth, and the only way to get out is to convince the guardians of the labyrinth to hand over clues that lead them out.
Something like that is great for montaging. That is a great scene to boil down, because if you do that and by manually, it'll take forever.
Right.
And be a lot of the same, not very exciting actions over and over and over again.
Right. And the other nice thing about some challenge scenes is that when you're shorthanding that narrative, once you've done the mechanics of deciding how the characters succeed or fail, you can get the players to, you can basically ask the players, okay, so you have succeeded at this challenge. Tell me in the game what happens. What does your success look like?
I like that. Claude says an acquaintance of mine made a full rescue system for how many bystanders you could evac using speed, quickness, and strength in various combinations. Interesting.
Sure.
I like that. Skwire asks, how do you decide how many success failures are needed for a challenge? Is there a rule of thumb that you follow for it?
My base rule of thumb is amount of players times half. So if there are 6 players, they need 8 degrees of success. So if every player gets a degree of success and 2 players get 2 degrees of success, they succeed.
Yeah.
And modulate as needed. So if you want it to be even harder, it'd be another, if you have 6 players, you need 12 degrees. If you need sort of up.
Real quick, Ken Pham says, what are the top 3 things to keep in mind while coming up with challenges?
I think my top 3 tips for coming up with challenges is starting with what do your heroes want? What is preventing them from getting that? Generalization. So coming up with a lot of different ways that the steps of the challenge can be accomplished. So if there's a stealthy way, an aggressive way, a big way. And then leaving a lot of room for player narration. So saying this skill check is to use stealth to evade the guards. Leave it just as that, and they get to sort of describe exactly what that looks like. So what route they take to get away from the guards, if they throw a rock or make a noise and slip away from them, just all that. Leave a lot of room for player agency.
I think the other key things to think about for challenges is give some careful thought to the difficulty class, especially if it's a challenge that requires multiple degrees of success. Don't make the DC too high. But consider what the DC should be for a minimal level of success and set it there. So oftentimes challenges will be a little lower DC than single skill checks. And in that same vein, give some thought to whether or not, if this is something that can be just accomplished with one skill check, probably shouldn't be a challenge. If this is something that is going to take time and focused effort, multiple checks, multiple skills, then that's something that you really want to build out as a challenge.
I dig it.
Yeah, I saw somebody asked about a general outline for a challenge sequence.
Yes, yeah.
I always give it a fun, quirky title. That's important. Everything needs a fun, quirky title.
Right.
But underneath that is the amount of time it takes for each check in the challenge.
Right.
And then I usually break it into phases of challenge for myself. I don't usually tell the players this, but this is the first phase, the second phase, the third phase, basically the beginning, middle, end objective. So breaking in, hacking into the security, breaking out, the amount of successes needed. And then I have a section for effects of successes. So the minimum amount of successes and then additional scaling successes and then effects of failures likewise. And then what the fail state is if they fail the whole challenge.
Gotcha. Janata says, now it makes me want to play a heist adventure. This is where players need to solve challenges to get the job done, but in a way that no one knows.
That is a classic example of a bunch of challenge sequences for an adventure as a heist.
Nate gives a shout out to Sam Hain. Sounds like we've got lots of active Mutants and Masterminds communities out there. Recruiting him fresh off the, enthusiasm train right into a community. I love it.
Apuk raises the other key thing I wanted to mention about challenges is look for opportunities for cooperation and ways that characters can help or support each other in the challenge. Sometimes it's just a matter of a character taking, the aid action and saying, this is how my skill can help this other character, and I'm going to roll just to give them a bonus on their roll.
I like it. Real quick, John asks, would either Steve or Alex consider an adventure where the best option is to talk the main villain down instead of physically defeating him to be suitable for the genre?
I'm not going to spoil anything, but the answer is yes.
Yeah, indeed. I was going to say that is a big element of the genre. I think that it needs to be, when that's the best option, I think you need to try and make that apparent as far as that goes, because it's not necessarily the immediate go-to for a superhero adventure. Some players it might be, but generally it's not. So I think you need to make that, when that's the best option, you need to make that fairly clear. But I think that talking a villain down is a great element of the genre.
And people enjoy the intricacies of that sort of engagement. Yeah, that's all right. Let's see. Pope says, "Hell, I've been in an Alex game where the final conflict resolved with me dating the villain." That's correct. Diplomacy is usually on the table. Yeah.
Look, the Cupid's minions are looking for love too. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it was educational.
It's only fair.
It is only fair.
I hope you had so much fun at the Foreigner concert.
Who went to a Foreigner concert?
Pope's character and the villain that they're
that's right. I got excited because I was like, that's what we did in the yeah.
It's Bone Man and Gary.
That's right. I remember that exchange. Fun. Super de-duper fun. John says a heist adventure might even be suitable for heroes. Maybe they have to break into a much higher PL villain's lair, steal a device from his lab to defeat the other one. Yep, I like it.
Or just steal a device from their lab to make sure they don't sell it to the wrong people.
Oh, right. Sure. Oh, I like that. Tim says...
Per the first Ant-Man movie.
Right.
You need to steal this device so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
Yeah, pretty much most of the Ant-Man movies plots you can handle with a lot of challenge sequences.
So real quick, I want to, which system would be more amenable to non-combat challenges, mutants and masterminds, or Age?
Both are great for it. Age has a lot of non-combat stunts that really aid outside of combat scenes. But I really like the flexibility of M&M for using a lot of different powers in a fun, creative ways.
Yeah. And Age's stunts largely make up for the fact that Age does not have anything like hero points. So, it's one or the other. I mean, M&M has hero points, which can also make challenges interesting in terms of ability to do re-rolls or to edit the scene or things like that.
Janana says a villain like Mr. How do you say that?
Mr. Mixes It Pitlick.
Yeah.
Mrs. Spasticlick would be perfect.
Yep. He's perfect for that. I've run a Justice League scenario where they interrupted Mixie's D&D game, and he forced them to play with him for the rest of it. And I did a whole dungeon crawl as a challenge sequence, which a dungeon crawl would generally be the whole adventure in a D&D game, but we wanted to get to the bottom of the dungeon to get a MacGuffin, and that was the point. The important thing when you're planning what you're going to do as a challenge sequence is figuring out what the point of this scene is in the story. And if it's supposed to be something that gets a lot of attention and a lot of focal points, maybe you don't run it as a challenge sequence. But if it's something that's supposed to lead to, something more pressing for the overall plot, just handle it as a montage challenge sequence.
Right.
Gotcha. Mix, yes, split, lick. No? Close. Pook says you can make an entire adventure that is just skill challenges with the right context. Like the Marvel villain Arcade, who would kidnap heroes and then drop them into incredibly elaborate connected death traps.
Indeed.
Let's see. Never mind my question. I read the title of the stream wrong.
Well, actually, I think that Ken raises an interesting point. There are definitely roles for combat skills or combat abilities in challenges, depending on the nature of the challenge and what you're playing out. If, for example, you're running a challenge sequence that is simplifying breaking into, a guarded installation, you might have part of that challenge sequence be, okay, make a combat skill check to overcome the guards. You don't want to play out the whole fight with the guards. They're just minions anyway.
Right.
So just roll a DC 18 in combat skill check, and if you succeed, you take the guards out. That part of this, you succeed on that part of the challenge.
It's also a good way to simulate mass combat. If there's a situation where the players are involved in a huge fight, like a planet-wide fight, that's a challenge is a lot of times better than just a regular combat, in my opinion.
I agree. And it's also great for things where things like aim and targeting ability are important. If it's about how good can a character shoot an arrow or a gun at a particular target to take it out, that might be a key part of the challenge.
Gotcha.
So you can definitely include combat abilities in that regard as well.
Yeah, it could also be a good way to handle vehicle combat if you don't want to break things down into vehicle fighting.
Yes.
Especially if it's one vehicle crewed by the whole party.
Nice. Austin says, my first time catching one of these live. I'm gearing up to run Nether War in the Marvel Universe, and Alex's series is proving very helpful. Glad you're here.
I'm very glad to hear that. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. If there's anything I can do to help.
Yeah, or maybe even float one across the Mumamo stage here. We might just see where it lands. Skwire says firing up a photon torpedo into an exhaust port.
Yeah, I think handling the Death Star fight as a challenge would be a fun thing to stat up.
Yeah,
right.
Indeed.
Let's see. The shield generator sequence in Return of the Jedi down on Endor is one of the greatest. Yeah, I agree.
Simultaneous, and especially, like you said, it's a simultaneous challenge that's going on with the dogfight that's happening around the Death Star at the same time.
Yeah. Well, even like Chewbacca and the Ewoks are fighting the stormtroopers, and Han and Leia are working on opening the blast doors.
Right. Smaller breakdown of the challenges and combats.
And you got to see a fun fail state where Han thinks, I got it, and then an extra blast door shuts.
I like that. David Bullock says, now to build the Guacacabra.
John Pologic is right. I think the entire time heist would be a challenge sequence in Avengers Endgame. That's
absolutely. There's very little combat involved in any of that. It is all just sort of challenges.
I'm looking
and that's another important thing is look at other stories and see where they montage things, because that is sort of where you want to put your challenge sequences as you're coming up with your plotting.
Yep. Oh, Ron has a great one of doing a challenge sequence for characters doing their finals in the Hero High game. That's a great challenge sequence. The SATs, the ultimate challenge.
I love it.
Even incorporating that into like every adventure in the series, having them roll an expertise student check at the end of each adventure to see how they're keeping up with their homework.
Yeah,
and having the success at the end of the semester too.
Right. And Alex makes a good point in that regard of you can, because of the way time intervals work with challenge sequences, you could even build a challenge that takes place over multiple game sessions. That is such, because the time sequence is so long, that, the players are only rolling once per adventure, and they're building up a challenge that happens over the course of several.
Yeah, it's a little bit extra paperwork for you, but it's something that I guarantee your players will remember and notice.
Yeah, and they'll be invested in the outcome.
I love it. Let's see here. Let's look at the Hero High Breakfast Club Adventure. I like that. Simon says an adult version of the exam challenge could be a GED test or a citizenship test. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Trying for a promotion at work, or handling a work project of some kind if characters have a side project they're working on.
Maintaining your probation if you're a villain who's trying to reform.
Yeah,
it's a great way to handle background subplots for PCs outside of the main adventures as well. They're just really cool. I think they're an elegant bit of game building.
Yeah, they're useful for a lot of things.
Nice. Let's see.
Yeah, I in the Beatles game I'm running, I have a challenge sequence to run the concert that is happening in the beginning of the story. So some of the squad has to break off to go and steal intelligence from the air traffic control tower of the airfield the concert is taking place at, but they also have to make sure the concert is good.
Right.
So there's a lot of expertise, criminal expertise, espionage, athletics checks or music checks to put things up, and technology and all sorts of fun stuff.
Skwire says the greatest Hero High challenge of all, prom.
Yep.
I could easily see that being a multi-week challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to, that whole montage sequence at the beginning before prom events where they show characters picking out their outfits and learning how to do the popular dance and all of that stuff. That's a long challenge right there to determine how successful an impression your character makes.
Would you make getting a haircut a roll or getting a bad haircut a fail state?
Could go either way, really. I tend to think more the later, but could it be either one?
Maybe it's an interaction skill check to see if you impressed the hairstylist enough that they give you a good haircut.
Right. Let's see.
Roll for choreography. Yes.
Yeah.
But sorry. Training montages, prep montages, all of those things are great. And you can do, for those kind of montages, the nice thing about them is that greater degrees of success can give the characters greater advantage in the next scene, but failure doesn't necessarily mean that they're doomed. It just means they're just not going to get much of an advantage in that next scene.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like, and I guess the Beatles challenge, they need 10 degrees of success to ensure a good show, but 12 degrees of success leads them acquiring more intelligence than originally intended, and they get a +2 circumstance bonus on further checks to interact with Rick Flag for the rest of the adventure.
Nice.
As an idea.
Fun. And now, does that appear in something that you just described?
It'll be appearing at Gen Con this weekend.
Aha, nice. So keep your peepers peeled. John says, hey, I had a school dance in my Hero High adventure. Of course.
Indeed.
Apex, is it Apex or I'm sorry.
Yes, Apex. It is okay. Apex.
Just making sure it wasn't Alex. Apex attempt at getting a date was interrupted by his abduction. I like that.
I am a gorilla, but importantly not a gorilla supervillain.
Right. You're using your powers only for good. And traumatizing your players, which is good.
That is not so much a challenge for you, Alex, as it is a requirement, right?
I was pretty stressed out at the end of the class.
Alex has skill mastery in that. He doesn't even need to roll for it.
I have my moments.
Thank you for the heads up on the kick stuff. and it's interesting. You've been getting them all day, but we've only streamed for an hour. Weird. And David Bullock says the Battle of the Kens. Yeah.
I haven't seen Barbie yet. I really want to see it.
It was great. I really did enjoy it. It was very, very fun.
I want to do the Barbenheimer. I'm here for the Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
Right. Double feature.
Yeah, it'll be after Gen Con.
SC Terra Marine says, trying to convince the heroes of Forgotten Realms to help you when Tiamat and Lolth invade Freedom City while figuring out how the two evil deities, how they got together in the first place.
Yeah.
That would be tough. That would be
right.
That'd be a bad day at Freedom City.
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm reading creative spelling is one of my favorite weaknesses. I just love it to teeth.
Yeah, I think I would rather fight Tiamat than Lolth, though. I think.
Yeah, right?
If I had to pick, the 5-headed dragon is the safer bet.
Really? So I'm not familiar with
in that regard.
Why do you say?
Tiamat will just kill my body. Lolth will kill my whole soul.
I see.
She's the Spider Queen, and there's a lot of horror elements involved in that. And I don't want to be a half person, half spider. That sounds like the worst.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tiamat will just eat me.
Tiamat will just eat you, at least. I mean,
I do love this stuff. I do want a shirt that says roll for choreography.
Right.
Dig it.
And a 2.
Look, choreography is a skill. It
100% is.
I am bad at choreography.
Gotcha. So Janata mentions that in anime Boku no Hero Academia, they need to pass tests saving people from disasters and only get their hero license if they fulfill the challenges correctly. Huh. Well, they stole that idea from us. No, I'm kidding.
No, it would be a great challenge sequence for a campaign-long challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or a season-long challenge.
Oh, interesting. Apuk says Lolth will dip you in spider gravy.
I don't want that.
No,
I don't want that at all. I don't want to get dipped in regular gravy.
No, yeah, and I don't want to know how spider gravy is made.
No, you do not.
I don't want to hear it being made.
I need to know if spider gravy is made of spiders or if it's full of spiders.
Right, or is it gravy for spiders to eat? Yeah, these are important questions.
Right.
Please provide an answer. SC Termarine says you could definitely get Drizzt. How do you say that name? Is it Drizzt?
Drizzt, yep.
Drizzt to help you. The Dark Elven Ranger is always willing to help others.
Exactly.
He's good.
Great. Both the Pook and Warden Maximus are teaming up to be obnoxious. They say the answer is yes. It is all of these things. Yummy.
Drizzit. Sorry, Drizzit.
Drizzit. Okay, nice. Whoa. Okay, we started on time, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
I feel like I stepped into a time machine that moved forward like every minute was another minute ahead of, I just don't even, it's kind of a slow time machine.
Jonathan Jackson's right, though. Doing a montage patrol is a great scene.
Yeah.
Where it's just the night of your heroes doing their job. That's a cool way to incorporate role playing without having to get bogged down in a full on fight.
It's a pretty elegant way to solve a lot of sort of boring moments, but then also to knit together story opportunities. Gives a little of that fun extemporaneous opportunity, so people can kind of get into their characters. I mean, it's a pretty remarkable bit of business.
It is. It's a very useful tool.
We'll be talking about it a lot next week during the Joy of Game Mastering when we're talking all about pacing. Because challenge sequences are a great way to control pace.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you were going to be. So you're doing the Joy of Game Mastering next week?
On the 8th, yes.
On the 8th.
But maybe we'll do one live at Gen Con. We'll see.
You know what? I'm going to try to talk you into that. Now, we're going to be there. We're going to also try to... Steve will be... he's not going to be at...
I will not be at Gen Con.
But we might want to wrangle sort of a remote Mumab fry. I mean, fry Mamo.
Mumagger.
Mumagger. Yeah.
I guess that'd be Green Ronin, not Gen Con. Mumak.
Right.
Mumak. Yeah, I like it. David Bullock says patrolling.
Yeah, going
And
out and protecting the city and helping people.
Yeah.
and
Without it being specifically an adventure.
with the final question, Tim says, how would superheroes from Marvel and DC approach non-combat challenges?
Same way heroes from Freedom City would.
Yeah.
They
Same as all
just open up
superheroes
a
do.
new universe and call it your daughter. I think
Yeah, anything we've talked about for this episode would be applicable to DC or Marvel heroes as well.
Absolutely.
Nice. Awesome. Well, so as we near the end of the program, I want to encourage everybody to stay tuned because we're just going to do all kinds of fun video stuff. I'm going to start a little video diary of my every waking minute at Gen Con, and that should be very, very exciting.
Right.
Word on
As
the
your
street.
roommate, I'm nervous about that.
I'm going to narrate everything you do. I'm just going to stand behind you. Alex walks down the stairs. He walks into the elevator. But it's going to be a blast. And if you're there, you got to stop by and see us. If you're not there, stop by the stream and say hey. And we got all kinds of special deals and all. It's going to be a Gen Con time. It really is.
It certainly will be.
Steve, what have you got cooking? What's going on in your world?
I'm spending a lot of my time not being at Gen Con and working on stuff for Valiant Adventures these days.
I will tell you that it does take a lot of time preparing for the time you'll be spending at Gen Con.
Yes.
It appears to be all that I'm doing. Alex, what's cooking with you aside from the Gen Con funnery?
Mostly that. I'm scrambling to finish my Gen Con prep this evening. But yeah, like I said, next Tuesday we'll be back for the joy of game mastering. We'll probably do something fun at Gen Con also. We'll pick a topic to talk about. I'll be running demos at the booth. I am running Mutants and Masterminds Adventures. I set myself up for 9 a.m. classes because I'm an idiot.
Right. Yeah. You do burn the candle at both ends and the middle.
Yeah, but it'll be fun.
It's heroic.
The events are sold out, but I have made sure that I have enough spots if people show up for each of the games I'm running. There are multiple secret spots. So
now
I'm sorry to the person who came to the Mummy game last year and I didn't have an extra character. If you're watching, I'm very sorry about that. If you come back, you can play with me again this year.
He has absolutely reordered his entire process so that there's always a space.
Yes.
Hey, just a reminder for everybody that'll be at Gen Con. Remember, we need to meet up before we do the thing that we're going to do to Alex.
To Alex? What?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. There's something on the line. It's static. Hey, friends. Always a great show, gentlemen. A pleasure, as per the usual.
Can we do something with Alex, not to Alex?
I don't. What are we talking about? Yes, do me a favor, everybody. If you're hanging out right now, wherever you're listening, whether it's on demand, whether you just unearthed this video in a time capsule that you are an alien from another planet and you are trying to figure out how we lived, do me a favor, stop by the YouTube, make sure you give us the thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed, because if you like this video, wait until you get a load of the collection we have over there. All kinds of good stuff. You also want to make sure that you're subscribed. Give us a thumb up. If there's like a heart to be given, give that. If they're stars, we want them. Do all of that. And also, I will warn everybody, you might want to pay close attention next week because I have heard the Indianapolis gravy squatch might be a thing, which explains the smell.
Troy, I swear to God, if there's gravy in my shoes,
I don't think you've been a good enough boy to get gravy in the shoes, but you might just get the big gravy spoon. Who can say? All right, everybody, have a great week. We will talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
I'm so afraid.